my God, what happened over in Houston? The Los Angeles Chargers got upset by the Houston Texans 32-12 in the AFC Wild Card round. CJ Stroud threw for 282 yards and a touchdown, and Joe Mixon had 119 all-purpose yards and a score as well. The Texans defense intercepted Herbert 4 times and also sacked him 4 times, and also one of those interceptions was a pick 6. And with this win, Houston advances to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. My question to you is, how shocking was this win from the Houston Texans?
I picked the Chargers. I thought that they were going to win, and I was shocked that they lost, particularly when they started out reasonably well. Too bad they couldn't have got touchdowns on those first couple of drives, but they did get field goals, and they were up 6-0. And at the end of the second half, it was 10-6 in favor of Houston. So it was a game. But the Texans defense, they were just my takeaway from this game is the defense carried the day. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They only gave up 50 yards rushing. They forced 4 interceptions after Herbert only threw 3 all year. So to me, that was the big difference in this game. You look at the rushing for the Chargers, the Dobbins, 9 carries, 26 yards. Edwards, 7 for 22 yards. And the receiving, aside from McConkey, who is a star, that's for sure. Disley, 2 for 16. Fisk, 1 for 15. Clark, 1 for 10. Davis, 1 for 4. And Quentin Johnson, no receptions. None. Nothing. Why do I'd say they're going to think hard about whether they want to hang on to that guy. When you throw it to him, he can't hang on to it anyway. And he didn't get a reception in this game, in a playoff game. And he was a first-round pick. So I think the Chargers are exposed that they don't have offensive weapons. They don't have the talent on offense to compete in a playoff game. And that's shown here. All they had was McConkey and Herbert. And Herbert was constantly harassed. He threw the 4 interceptions. He only had 3 all year. That was the difference in the game. The Texans defense had 4 sacks too. They pressured him on 50% of his dropbacks, forcing him to go 3 of 14 for 112 yards and 1 TD and 2 interceptions in that period. He couldn't handle the pressure, and the Texans applied it on almost every play.
Well, I think, and I want to preface this before I jump into it, and I have the data to back me up, and nobody believes me. And I said this on the show. I thought Justin Herbert should be picked over Tua Tagovailoa in that year's draft, and I still believe that. But as it currently stands, Herbert goes from a B+ quarterback to a B- C+ quarterback. This was his moment to shine. He was favored on the road in Houston to a Houston team that was reeling and had one good game in a matter of, 6-7 games? Everybody was saying, what's wrong with the Houston Texans? The offensive line was banged up, basically the smithereens. Joe Mixon was a hit or miss in some of these games, and CJ Stroud, who had turnover issues and wasn't playing very well. So the Chargers were lining up to do something tremendous, which is finally get a playoff win, which they haven't done since 2018. And Jim Harbaugh, it would have just added to his reputation of he wins everywhere he goes. Now, I don't know if you go up against, the Kansas City Chiefs or whatnot and somehow, pull off the upset there. But at least winning that first playoff game would do something that Justin Herbert hasn't done, and that's win a playoff game. Because last time we saw him in the playoffs, him and his team choked away a 27-0 lead. But so for me, a lot of this falls on Justin Herbert because he put the ball in harm's way. A couple of them were drops, I understand. But he just didn't play well. I don't think anyone could really say that he played adequately or he played good enough. He just didn't play well. And I actually put a decent amount of the blame, and I really haven't seen anybody talk about this. But for me, I put a lot of the blame on offensive coordinator Greg Roman. And I think we could look at some of the history of it and look at Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson wasn't a great developed passer during Greg Roman's time with the Baltimore Ravens. And then we see as soon as Todd Monken gets in there last year, we see that Lamar Jackson is a pretty decent thrower, and working with Todd Monken, working on his passing, it really helped Lamar Jackson turn into the quarterback that he turned into this year, which is have over 4,000 passing yards. So I think Greg Roman deserves a lot of the blame. And over the course of Greg Roman's offensive coordinator coaching career, any quarterback has suffered massively in the numbers department. And we look at Justin Herbert and we credited the efficiency, the 23 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But what happens when Greg Roman's system, which is heavily focused on running the football, what if that fails? Because he's worked with Colin Kaepernick, he's worked with LaShawn McCoy, he worked with Lamar Jackson, all teams that had great running games. And the Los Angeles Chargers had J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, 2 running backs that had injury histories, and an offensive line that was good, relatively good, but also had some issues with Justin Herbert not performing very well. So these are the passing offensive ranks and the records to go. I'll bring up the graphic, but these are the passing offensive ranks for the teams that Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator to. Oh, they're nearly bottom 5 every single year. With a few of these years, one of them being last, 3 times they were 30th in the league, 28th a few times, 29th, 23rd, 27th, 13th with Lamar Jackson. That was a tremendous year for Lamar. And then 19th for this past year with the Los Angeles Chargers. And on the right side is their team's record when they rush for under 100 yards in a game. And let me quick total that up. That's 12-25, or a 32.4 winning percentage. If they don't run the ball efficiently, which is what I've said for a number of weeks now, you're probably going to lose because Greg Roman doesn't have a system that helps them out with the passes. And by the way, that 3-3 record in 2011 for the 49ers, that were their only losses of the entire season in the regular season. They went, 13-3? Those 3 losses came when they rushed for under 100 yards. So for me, it's a Justin Herbert issue and it's a Greg Roman issue. And I would put a decent amount of the blame. I would do it very close to 50-50, but because Greg Roman is setting up this system and we've seen what Justin Herbert can do, I would put slightly more of the blame on the system, which is Greg Roman's offensive system.
Yeah, well, it's maybe Herbert's worst game of his career.
Probably.
I think. The O-line was a sieve. And it's even more of a factor here about how bad the offense was. The defense did force 3 turnovers.
Correct.
But the offense never showed up.
I think it got really bad when the opening Houston Texans drive, they fumbled it on their own 33.
Yeah.
And it ended with a 6-play drive starting on the Houston 33, and it ended up with a field goal. 6 plays, 12 yards, nearly 3 minutes on the drive, and you move a grand total of 12 yards.
Yeah.
12 yards.
Yeah, those 3 turnovers, they wound up with 3 points.
And the 3 points came off that opening drive.
Yeah.
They did not score on the other 2 turnovers.
That was it. Terrible.
There were opportunities that they did not have, and especially in that first half, when the game was still in balance.
Yeah, and, I think
failed opportunities.
Even almost to the end of the first half, it was still a Chargers game, right? They were up 6-0. I think the pivotal play in the game was the 3rd and 16 with 2:24 left in the first half. Stroud fumbled the snap.
Yeah, no.
He rolled right, threw
play.
a dart to Hutchinson for 34 yards.
He was wide open,
that
too.
That was the play because it looked like it was going to be that there was a busted play, and he made something out of it. And then a TD pass to Collins for a 7-6 lead going into halftime. That turned the momentum from the Chargers over to the Texans for sure.
Well, I don't think there was much momentum anyway, but obviously once you get that touchdown and finally get the ball rolling offensively, then the momentum's in your favor. Because if you keep forcing turnovers and then putting up a grand total of 3 points, realistically, how much momentum do you have as a team?
Before that play, the Texans had 2 first downs and 2 turnovers.
Right,
so
right.
They hadn't done anything.
It was bad.
They'd done nothing. And it looked like on that play they weren't going to do anything either.
Right.
It was Stroud. I mean, Stroud, he had a good game, right? I mean, Stroud's stats, 22 of 33, 212 yards, a TD, and an interception. And given the way he'd been playing,
and
I mean, we were calling him
too.
all season. We were saying sophomore slump for this guy.
Right.
He's not doing that well. He came up big in this game.
Right. And by the way, that I'm going to pile on to Greg Roman. What was that interception play call? Roll to your right, cross body, cross field throw to, was it Quinton Johnson, I think? That's an easy pick.
Yeah.
That's what Bill Belichick slammed his head into when Mac Jones did that. Twice in one game against the Cowboys.
The pressure on Herbert was big. His accuracy was not what it normally is. He threw a ball high, and that wound up being an interception. It went off the hands of the guy, and I
think it was McConkey. Yeah,
was right behind.
Yeah,
and the guy ran right in for a touchdown, pick 6. So, I was very surprised and very disappointed. It cost me a playoff game.
Yeah, it cost us a nice win.
Yeah. I mean, that was the first game, too, and we both lost it.
Yeah,
I was
didn't start off the
bummed.
weekend very nicely.
I was bummed out.
But I do want to give credit. ESPN's Ben Solak wrote this out, and he broke this down a little bit. Greg Roman in 5 playoff games as the Ravens and Chargers offensive coordinator. 64 points, that's 12.8 points a game. 11 turnovers, that's 2.2 per game. He's not a good offensive coordinator. And that's what I kind of thought. It made sense because Jim Harbaugh does do the ground and pound game. But you don't have a Saquon Barkley. You don't have a Derrick Henry. You don't have a Josh Jacobs. You don't have a Jonathan Taylor. You have J.K. Dobbins, who's good but injury history, and Gus Edwards, who's okay and has an injury history.
They need more offensive talent.
They need firepower. And you let go of Keenan Allen. You let go of Mike Williams, who had decent impacts on their respective teams.
Quentin Johnson.
But Quentin Johnson being your wide receiver 1, that brought up red flags for everybody. Everybody. And then when you draft Joe Alt, it made sense in Jim Harbaugh's system.
They had a good draft, Alt and McConkey in the same draft. That's great.
But you can't have a guy who's 5'9" be your true X factor. You need a guy who's 6'2", 6'3", who can create that separation. And maybe this year you go get it, but
they definitely need to focus on the offense for the draft.
Their defense was number 1 in the NFL. And again, it was they kept taking the ball away from this team, fumble, intercept. Like, they did a fine job in the first half, giving the offense opportunities. But if you're giving up, and by the way, think about how they ended the game. I'd feel terrible if I'm the defense. This was the time of possession that they had in the fourth quarter: 1:30, 1:22, 59 seconds. That was their time of possession. That's not so. By the way, the amount of plays: 5 plays, and 6 plays. You can't do 1.5-minute drives and expect to put up points, unless you're the Rams and you're just dominating everybody. But we could look at you can look at the box score. We could look at the score of this game and say, well, they weren't doing anything really. The Texans did a tremendous job. Yeah. It was an incredibly disappointing game for a team that we look at Justin Herbert and we think he puts up consistently B to B plus level play. This was an F game.
Yeah,
this was a big fat F game. So again,
Terrible.
innocent till proven guilty. I've said this several times on the show. Justin Herbert now needs to go in, and I think that Greg Roman should be on a very hot seat because those passing numbers, I'm going to bring them up again, does not bode well for Justin Herbert's progression. We're waiting for him to make that jump. Jalen Hurts did it. Josh Allen did it. Mahomes was always great. In his first year starting, 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. We see these quarterbacks make decent jumps, but yet Justin Herbert's always remained relatively consistent. We're waiting for him to take that jump where he does leap from being a consistently really good quarterback to now being considered truly in the top 10 and staying in the top 10. He wasn't in my top 10 list, I don't think, at all this season. Because what has he done to make him a top 10 quarterback besides be efficient? He wasn't a dominant player this year.
I thought that he would be close to being my top 10 until this game. I was shocked at how poorly he played. I really he was he used poor judgment. His accuracy was poor. Not that mobile. He got sacked 4 times. I was very disappointed.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching this clip of the Harvey Hour. If you want to watch the full show, you can by clicking the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to take the show with you on the go, it is available wherever you get your podcast. We go live here on YouTube every single Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and the notification bell to get notified whenever we upload a video and whenever we go live.